mind thing is you have to win.
Ill intent, violence, physicality, pain. Enough is enough.
All right, welcome back to the Just Win podcast. We are live after a thrilling Monday night game when the Raiders almost came back in the end, but they lost 15-9. I know some Raider Nation probably is going to celebrate that. Others might not be so happy. That's Tashan Reed. That's Vic Tafer. I'm Ted Wynn. If you're joining us tonight live at 10:30 after that game, you guys are dedicated. And thank you for joining us. How are you guys doing?
Doing great, man. That was the worst game I've watched maybe ever for the first three quarters. But then it actually got a little exciting. It was entertainment. I liked it.
Yeah, better not that game is over. Got to see two pretty terrible offenses right now. I know the Falcons had some good moments early in the season, but Kirk Cousins was cooked, man. I mean, the Raiders are playing about as bad as you could play on offense, and this somehow still ended up being a game that came down to a Hail Mary. So, like you said, I'm sure some Raiders fans were upset that it didn't go their way. I'm sure others are happy that they're staying in the number one overall pick discussion. So, it kind of is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I was deep in the Twitter world interacting with the fans. I was in a mush. People were nervous at the end. You know, like the Raider fans, they were cheering for the Falcons. They were nervous. They were like,
Oh, man,
"There's no way
terrible.
Desmond Ridder does this and pull it off in the end." For you guys that didn't watch the game, it felt like the Falcons were pretty much in command of the game the whole way. Had some red zone issues, kicked some field goals, missed a field goal. And then you look up and all of a sudden it's a one possession game and the Raiders have the ball and they're driving. For some reason, the Falcons, who were playing good defense throughout the entire, maybe not good defense, just
Good enough.
defense and bad offense. Yeah. But they were, the Raiders could barely move the ball throughout the entire game. And then towards the end, they started playing prevent defense with their defensive backs like 20 yards back and just giving the Raiders completion after completion. And, they made it a little bit of a game towards the end, but in the end, they did what's best for the future of the franchise and ended up losing the game. So bad game management, a little bit more bad game management from Antonio Pierce. I'll let you guys go into that.
You know what? I have to. Oh shit, we're live. I have to go back and fix my story. So give me. I'll be back in 5 minutes. You guys talk. I gotta finish this. Sorry, guys.
I'll take it. We're tapping in. This is live television right now. This is me and Ted's segment anyways. Ted's always fired up about the game management, but end of the first half, they had an opportunity, to get some more points. I mean, they were trailing 9-3 and got the ball back with about a minute 50 left, 2 timeouts, and they ended up getting nothing. And the way that they got to nothing was just kind of weird. They had a completion. The Falcons took a timeout. Then they ran the ball. And, we've seen a couple of times this year where they've seemed to be more concerned about not letting the other team get the ball back than they were with actually scoring points. And they were backed up close to their own end zone. I think they started like the 10-yard line. But even still, like you have 2 minutes and 2 timeouts. Like you should be trying to score points, especially when you're trailing before halftime. They run the ball twice. They don't take timeouts either time. So they burn like a minute worth of clock. And then they throw the ball after getting the first down. They complete it. And then they finally take their first timeout with like 30 seconds left. And then they have an incompletion. And then Ridder gets sacked. And they just say, fuck it, and just go into halftime with the timeout sitting there. And so it was just weird. Like, I don't really know. Like, it's like they're caught in between trying to score and trying to burn clock, and they end up doing neither. Or I guess they burn clock, but not scoring and not moving the ball and not putting themselves in positions to get some points before halftime. And I get it. Like, the offense was playing bad. Ritter's your third string quarterback starting games at this point. Like, there's not a lot of reason to have optimism about the offense. But that doesn't mean you just don't try to, like, score points. Like, you're going to have to win at some point in order to win this game. And even if they had just gotten in field goal range before halftime and gotten an extra 3 points, then at the end of the game, when you're trailing by 6 and need a touchdown, that could have been a situation where all they needed was a field goal. And they got to the Falcons' 35-yard line on that final drive. So they were in Daniel Carlson's field goal range. So it may seem like a nitpicky thing. I mean, you say it's a lost season anyway, and they're on a third string quarterback. What do you think's going to happen? But it literally, could have changed the outcome of this game if they had just gotten field goal range. Not even scoring a touchdown at the end of the first half. And so, those types of moments are pretty pivotal, and they're instances that have been recurring for the Raiders throughout the season, and it's cost them all year, and it cost them again today.
Well, the problem is, it's very clear Antonio Pierce's job security is up in the air right now after Mark Davis's comments. And, obviously you don't want to get blown out. It doesn't seem like the Raiders are going to get blown out. They play hard, but like you want to see him get better at these situations, and it just hasn't gotten better. It's like been the same or worse. And I know, like, towards the end of the half, a lot of teams do this where their goal is to be the team that possesses the ball last, but they also want to score. But the number one goal should always be scoring. But the Raiders' offense is not good enough to balance those two things. So, like, and it's been proven time and time again. So try to score. Like, stop this whole balancing act. It hasn't worked.
I'll jump into their offense was so bad. I don't think you can be really that aggressive at that point. I think until Bowers hit the Bowers that one pass, and they thought they might give it a shot. But I can see why. Again, all year long, he's been kind of reluctant to kind of go for it because their offense is terrible. I mean, now it's even worse. They got the guy in Ridder who wasn't on their roster 6 weeks ago. So I just think. Yeah, it's definitely an issue, but like tonight, I mean, their offense was so bad. I can't really fault them for not being aggressive at the end of the first half because you're more afraid of mistakes and getting down even bigger. They're still in the game at that point, and I know it's defeatist attitude, but I mean, I'm just looking at this offense, and I think people talked about how it's better with Scott Turner, yada yada yada. I mean, they're pretty freaking bad. I mean, tonight the two shotgun handoffs in the end zone, one got a safety. They did it again later for three of them. I just think some of the calls were pretty bad. And I just think, again, I'm not really sure how much Antonio can do to fix what's wrong on the offense.
You got to try to score at some point. Like even if your offense is bad, like you can't win if you score 3 points.
Can't hide the offense
So it's
forever.
like, I mean, it wasn't like it was 20 seconds left when they got the ball back. You got 2 minutes left and 2 timeouts. You got to try to score. You can't just run if you don't try to score in this situation. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I mean, you gotta go for it. It doesn't mean it's going to work out, but it's better than just running the clock out. Like they ended up doing. So.
Right.
Again, like those things, like there was probably never a world where the Raiders were good this season with their quarterback situation. I mean, Gardner Minshew was terrible. Aiden O'Connell hasn't been much better, and he's been hurt the whole season pretty much. Desmond Ridder obviously isn't better than either one of them. You had to fire your offensive coordinator. They've had so many injuries on defense. Right now, they have 5 starters on injured reserve, namely Max Crosby and Christian Wilkins and Malcolm Kuntz, and a lot of these guys that we were expecting to lead the defense. So I'm not acting like the Raiders should have been a good team this year, but there's probably a good like 3 or 4 games where they've had these really huge bad game management instances that help dictate them losing. So I just think those when it's that consistent and you don't see growth or progress at any point over the season, it's just one of those things where it's like, all right, when is there going to be growth? Because I mean, this is what his 23rd game as head coach. You would hope to see some more progress by this point when it comes to that stuff.
And let's I know Antonio Pierce has problems, but like you guys mentioned, it is hard playing with a quarterback that was playing as badly as Desmond Ridder. And they were trying to put together like an option offense kind of last second, and you saw kind of things didn't go so smoothly on every play. They were running a completely different offense before, obviously, with Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. And the Falcons defense were pretty much just teeing off on the run game. Like they did not respect Desmond Ridder's ability to get the ball downfield, and they really affected the run game. The Raiders were running the ball better coming into this game, but those linebackers were just triggering towards the line of scrimmage. McCormick wasn't getting a lot of success. He got stuffed for 7 carries for 8 yards before he was hurt. And things started opening up a little bit more after Ridder was able to keep the ball and get some carries. But I mean, just watching from the TV copy, it looked like there were guys open. He just couldn't hit them. It seemed like there was guys open right in front of him, and he just couldn't get the ball to those open guys. I thought Turner did the smart thing. Like he was motioning Brock Bowers outside. He was getting him on outside routes. And I thought there were some opportunities there that they just couldn't complete. But I mean, that's to be expected when you're down to a third string quarterback that wasn't on your roster in the beginning of the season.
Yeah, he mentioned on a Wednesday, like I think he's kind of aware of the problem he had, in Atlanta when he was there, and also still now is he's looking to run maybe too soon. He like when the play breaks down, he's thinking I got to go when maybe he shouldn't always be trying to go. So I think he's not really making all the progressive reads needs to make and not looking at certain guys when it might be open here. I can hit him here later. So I just think it's probably going still too fast for him. I'm sure tonight with a new offense and new guys who he's not really used to, I'm sure it's even more kind of speedy in his process. So, it's yeah, I mean, this is going to sound mean, but he's not very good. So I think that's also part of it. But I think tonight was a tough assignment, and yeah, they didn't. I mean, like I said, he was on the roster 6 weeks ago, so it's kind of hard to ask a lot out of him tonight.
Yeah, every time this season he's got into the game, it kind of just seems like his head is swimming out there. Might be overthinking it, and I mean, he was dropped into this offense in the middle of the season. You have a offensive coordinator change. So Scott Turner's moving things around and changing things, I'm sure. And this week he did get all the practice reps because Aiden O'Connell didn't practice. He tried to warm up before this game, but ultimately he was listed as inactive. He was listed as a third string emergency quarterback, so if they absolutely needed him to play, he would have, which maybe bodes well for his chances to play next week if he's able to get some practice time, I would say.
I was going to say, I watched his pregame workouts, and he looked like he was jogging pretty good. He was limping when he walked, but he was able to jog and run pretty fast at times, and he's throwing the ball pretty well. So just based on watching that, I think he'll be ready to go next week. I think he wants to. Obviously, he knows, we've talked about before, it's kind of his last chance, I think, to be a starting quarterback. So he must take advantage of that. And again, the Jaguars are a great matchup. He's got some nice matchups down the stretch for him to want to jump in and get some stuff done. So I think he'll be back next week is my expectation.
Yeah, it was clear that a lot of the game plan with Ridder revolved around his legs. I mean, they were in shotgun a lot. And I don't know, it seemed like they ran a zone read like a few times just on their first drive alone. And, that's predicated on the quarterback's legs, but also having a productive run game, which they had in recent weeks. But Sincere McCormick was really struggling early in this one. I think he, like Ted mentioned, I think he had less than 10 rushing yards and like 10 carries. But he suffered what looked like a fairly significant ankle injury in the first half, and so he was knocked out for the rest of the game. And Alexander Madison, he just hasn't been an efficient runner this season, and that continued in this one. And without that threat of McCormick, it just wasn't really much of a reason for the Falcons to respect that whole zone read option. I mean, if they hand the ball off to McCormick, like he's not McCormick, but Madison, he's not getting any yardage, so it kind of takes away that component of it. And in the past, when it comes to how they were aligned, they were stacking the box pretty often. Like they just didn't respect Ridder's ability to push the ball downfield. That was apparent, and so the Raiders' run game just couldn't get going. And I just thought like situationally, some of the play calling for Scott Turner was a little weird. Like on the safety, you're backed up on your own 1 yard line, and like you run a handoff out of shotgun, like you're already like 7 yards. You make yourself even deeper in the end zone and gets tackled for a safety. Like it's hard to blame the players in that. It's a ridiculous call. So I think the Scott Turner magic, or if it ever existed, and they still haven't scored 20 points.
Good enough to get some interest from Bill Belichick. He might be Bill Belichick's next OC.
The crazy
thing ain't gonna be the Raiders one next year.
The crazy thing was, they do it for the safety, and later on in the game, they're all again the ball, and they do it again. They do another shotgun handoff out of I couldn't believe it did again after the first one ended up in the safety. But again, I get it. There's not much on this offense. I mean, teams are definitely taking away. Brock Bowers is, bracket coverage, 2 guys, double teams tonight. Ridder mentioned it was hard to find him because they have guys playing, behind him and in front of him. It was hard to force him the ball. So I do think Desmond made a couple of nice throws. I think at times you see the arm talent. The one of Bowers at the end of the first half, dropped one in, I think, to Abdullah at one point. So he's got talent for sure. Just it hasn't been able to kind of get to that next stage you need to get to as an NFL quarterback, where you're making reads, making smart plays, not turning the ball over, and not running for your life too soon.
Yeah. He had some of the Gardner Minshew problems with the pocket management. Rewatching the game just from TV copy, I'll see more in all 22, but I thought the offensive line played better than I thought initially watching it. There was times where Desmond Ridder just kind of ran himself into trouble, um, much like Gardner Minshew did when he was a starter. So that was a problem. I'm curious to rewatch and see how good or decent they looked. Um, from the end zone angle. But next topic we want to talk about special teams. Special teams were this might be one of the worst special teams I've seen or performances I've seen from a team. We're talking 2 block punts. Was it a block field goal or was it just a miss?
It was
That was blocked. And
Yeah.
one of the punts doesn't count, I guess, in terms of stats, doesn't count as a block officially because the ball went forward. So officially, one block punt and one tip that, the ball. But yeah, but it's, but essentially 2 block punts and a blocked PAT. So that's right. And the second block punt resulted in a field goal. So right there, that's 3 points, 1 for the PAT. That's 4 points. All of a sudden, now you're only down 2 at the end instead of down 4, and a field goal wins you the game. So definitely huge mistakes by the team's unit today.
Have you guys seen that before? Essentially 3 block kicks in one game from one team. I don't think I've seen that before.
I asked AJ Cole afterwards if they were, because he's the holder also on the PAT, and he's the guy who's getting his kicks blocked. I asked him if he saw anything or something that jumped out. He's like, no, they actually were running the same, rushes they ran on the film, and they were prepared for it. He just said the guys just broke down. The guys lost matchups, and it was just a case where it was on them for mistakes, not for like any surprise schemes or stunts. It was all just things they expected, but guys got beat in different places, and then. Yeah, it's a big time collapse by what's usually a pretty reliable unit.
Yeah, maybe they got the memo. They got the tank memo.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a memo going around.
Yeah.
And then even outside of the blocked kicks or whatever, your Abdullah was doing some weird shit too, he called a fair catch on the punt at the 3-yard line before they had the safety. And then I think the next punt he did it again in the inside the 10-yard line.
They started inside their 10-yard line three possessions in the first half or something like that.
And later on he didn't do it and the ball got down at the 1-yard line. So I mean it just they were in their own end a lot. And obviously if you're a bad offense, it's the worst place you can be because it's just like you mentioned, the quarterback was pressing a little bit. Defense is, it's coming at you. It's just it's a tough spot to make plays if you're on your 1-yard line or on your 2-yard line.
Yeah, that's all around just pretty terrible special teams performance from the Raiders. Yeah. One unit that was playing hard and was playing pretty well was the defense. Even without Max Crosby, they held the Falcons to 15 points. And like we mentioned, terrible field position for the defense for most of the game. But they fought hard. I mean, these guys, you could tell what kind of a big difference Max Crosby makes because the Raiders actually have been a pretty decent run defense, top 10 in defensive rushing success rate, but they got gashed on the ground today. But at least they were able to bottle them up when they got to the red zone. They actually held Kirk Cousins to his worst game as far as efficiency and EPA. EPA per dropback was minus 0.44. And to put that in perspective, 0.2 is horrendous. His game against the Chargers was minus 0.22. Against the Raiders, it was twice as bad. Didn't have the turnovers, but he just was not efficient, took sacks, wasn't passing the ball downfield. He only had 112 passing yards the whole game. So, this was a really bad performance by Kirk Cousins, but I thought the Raiders were playing hard. I mean, Tyree Wilson had a pretty good game. He pressured the quarterback a few times. He had a sack. He was playing mostly in Max Crosby's place on the right side of the offensive line, and the defensive line were they were getting after it. Spillane had an interception. Jack Jones kind of gambled and gave up their only touchdown to Drake London. But other than that, the Raiders had a pretty solid performance defensively.
Yeah, I agree. A
Yeah,
good scheme by Patrick Graham. I think, they mentioned the guys up front. Undrafted rookie Lualu had a sack. I thought he played well in the middle. Just so the guys stepped up. I mean, and again, a lot of it is, on Cousins. I mean, I knew he was bad. I saw the highlights and I hear all the stories, but when you watch it with your own eyes, I mean, he is a statue who does not throw very well anymore. So he missed some guys himself. So yeah, and the defense took advantage of that. So definitely they kept them in the game, and it's really a game the Raiders had no business being in, and they were. So props to the defense.
yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously they fought all the way to the end, and it was a pretty impressive performance. I know that Kirk Cousins and the Falcons' offense have been struggling as of late, but in the preview to the game, I think we all thought that this was probably going to be a bounce back performance for him, and it was definitely not. He looks awful. I think he's cooked. He's going against Desmond Ridder, and I would say he was the worst quarterback on the field for this one. I mean, 11 of 17 for 112 yards,
Was he the
one
worst quarterback on
touchdown,
the
and
field?
one interception. And at least Ridder could run around and get away from some guys. Like if there's
I
any
mean,
pressure on Kirk Cousins, he's going down immediately.
but then
He's
again,
just
if the Raiders got into
Michael
a prevent,
Penix in, man. What is the
if,
point anymore? Put Michael Penix in.
yeah, it's tough. I mean, if the Raiders got into a prevent defense, maybe Cousins would do something. So I just, like Ted mentioned, it was a strange decision by their defense to go to prevent when the Raiders only crossed midfield once the entire game before that. So just bad coaching on their side. But yeah, I mean, like Antonio Pierce after the game, the guys aren't budging. I mean, they're definitely working hard. They're trying to make a stand and trying to get a win. And yeah, it's now what 10 losses in a row, and it's I'm sure it'd be easy to throw a towel in, but these guys are still fighting, and they don't care about draft position. They want to win.
Yeah, and Levi Edwards, I think he works for the Raiders official website, but he tweeted out a coach passed him by in a sideline and whispered 96 in his ear before the game, and
Wow.
that's he had a sack, right? So maybe
Yeah.
maybe how do you say his name? Alohu?
Laulu.
Laulu.
Yeah, maybe he's somebody to watch out for in the last few games. Maybe see if he could provide a spark, and might be a guy that could at least provide some depth the next year.
Yeah,
So
he's from Vegas, so he's a local kid. So it's a good story.
yeah, also want to shout out Sione Manoa. He was active today. Tyler Manoa was active today. So Tyler was one of my high school teammates' little brother, and he used to come to our practices all the time as a little kid and watch our practices for 4 years. So it's kind of cool to see him active. And he went to UCLA and transferred to Arizona, and yeah, kind of cool to see him active for the Raiders today. So shout out Tyler.
There you go. That's a feel good moment, man, on a jury night. There you go.
Yeah, some good news. All right, so tank update. Some people are confused about this. So what you guys are tank experts. Want to explain how the Raiders fell to number 2 today?
All right, Dr. Reed, please explain the difference.
Yeah, I mean they were already number 2 because the Giants had more losses coming into today. But the reason why they're still number 2 is strength of schedule. That's what the first tiebreaker is when two teams have the same record in terms of draft order, in terms of determining who gets the highest pick. The Giants right now have .541 according to the NFL. The Raiders have .571. If you have the weaker strength of schedule, you're considered the worst team because you've had an easier schedule, and that means you're worse by the NFL, and so that's why the Giants currently have the number 1 pick. The reason why the NFL website lists a different strength of schedule number than draft or Tankathon is because Tankathon uses an algorithm where they basically predict the rest of the season, like in terms of win-loss records and what's going to happen, and so the strength of schedule number on there is a projection, whereas the one on the NFL's website is the actual current strength of schedule. So, if the season ended today, December 16th, as we're recording this, the Giants would have the top pick. Tankathon is saying that they think that over the course of the next 3 games, the Giants' opponents are going to do this, the Raiders' opponents are going to do that, and the Raiders are going to end up with the top pick. But that's a projection. It's not what it currently is. And so, to be clear, currently, officially, according to the NFL, like the league itself, so we can go with them as the official record since it is their league, the Giants have the number 1 pick, and the Raiders have the number 2 pick. Doesn't really matter
deal.
because there's 3 games left, and we don't know what the fuck's gonna happen in those 3 games, so we can't really predict anything yet. But that's where it is right now.
And we got big bad Mac Jones coming to town Sunday. Woo!
Yeah, I think Big Cat, said Mac Jones is the cockiest bad quarterback he's seen, and that's actually a very apt description of Mac Jones. That guy's like, he has like that Phillip Rivers attitude, but not quite that type of play on the field. But yeah, he's coming to town, and he is gonna be an obstacle on this course towards the number 1 pick. So we will see what happens next week. But let's get into fan questions before we wrap this up. Got Raiders Camus donated $5 to ask this question, so shout out to him. Why did they play in shotgun the whole game? Was there any reason behind it? Even twice on their own 1-yard line, Ridder looked lost the entire game.
We were talking about this during the game. I also thought it seemed like it was every play, but Tashan checked it out, and I guess there were maybe 10 to 15 plays behind center. But we'll ask them tomorrow. We'll get Pierce tomorrow on a Zoom. But my guess is that is his comfort. I think that's what Desmond's used to. He's not probably more as comfortable behind center. He definitely wants to get out there and see the field a little better. So I think it was for his sake. But we'll have a definite answer tomorrow.
Yeah, I think it is a comfort thing, and also they were trying to commit to this quarterback option game. And even when you're backed up on your own goal line, I think the thought was that the Falcons are just firing off on the run game, that we need Desmond Ridder to be sort of a threat to slow down the defense a little bit. Obviously, it didn't work out that way, but my guess is that's what the thought process behind that was. And yeah, Desmond Ridder did look lost. I mean, I don't even know if he looked this bad in Atlanta, but yeah, he definitely did not know what was going on out there. All right, next question from a Blazement. Wait, so the Giants will have the number 1 pick if both teams lose out? Sean just explained it. We don't know exactly yet, but Tankathon is projecting that the Giants will have the worst strength of schedule, which would give them the number 1 pick.
Yeah, and also
No.
just
I thought it was the other way around. I thought Tankathon was the Raiders who had the number 1 pick if it plays out the way it's playing, right?
yeah.
So if Tankathon's saying if they both lose out, the Raiders will have the worst pick. But today it's the Giants. With the way that the schedule is set up and the teams are playing, if they both lose out, it'll be the Raiders at number 1.
So the Raiders control their own destiny.
Yes.
All right, so from
well, it still depends on so your strength of schedule is based on like the overall records of the teams that you've played.
Right.
Okay.
So that's also fluid. It's not just up to whatever the Raiders and Giants do. So if basically the Raiders want themselves to, if you're a Raiders fan and want them to be the number 1 overall pick, you want the Raiders to lose every week, but you also want essentially every team. No. You want every team that they've played to lose.
Like you want Kirk Cousins to keep playing and Cousins lose the rest of his games. You want your Cousins guy now. You want Cousins to keep playing and keep being terrible.
So basically, you want all the Raiders' opponents to keep losing because that lowers your strength of schedule.
Yes,
that's how it works.
If you hate on your AFC West rivals even harder than you did before.
Hate on everybody. That's the hate on everybody.
Player haters ball.
And root for everybody that the Giants have played. Unless there's mutual opponents there, then you got to conflict.
But if you're breaking it down to that point, it might be time to go outside and do something else for a while.
What the fuck else are they going to be paying attention to with the last 3 games, man?
Fucking go mow the lawn, fucking play with your kids, buy some Christmas gifts or shit.
Raider fans were into this game. They were watching till the very end. They're engaged.
It's Monday Night Football, man. The whole world's watching this game. The whole world is watching this game tonight. It's beautiful.
I don't know. I felt like there was more people watching the Bears get blown out by the Vikings.
Yeah, I was being a smart ass, but yeah. All right. Next question.
All right, Mick Smugger. If you're Tom Brady, are you cleaning house and starting over again?
It's impossible to answer because you don't really know. We don't know how much control Tom will have, how soon. I think he still wants to be broadcasting. I don't think they're going to clean house. I think that would also involve Telesco. I think we both have the sense Telesco is going to be back next year. So then it's all about Pierce and his staff, and so I don't think. My answer is no. I don't think even if Brady is in total command right away, that they'll clean house next year.
Yeah, yeah. I don't envision. For one, we talked to Mark Davis last week at the owners' meetings, and he said then, I mean, Antonio Pierce and Tom Telesco are being evaluated separately, and so just because one gets fired doesn't mean the other one's going to get fired, or if anybody gets fired, we don't know for sure yet. So I mean, I don't. I think based on the results that we've seen thus far, while Telesco, he's not blameless. Like helped put together this roster this offseason and you know, he's the guy that signed Gardner Minshew and also signed Christian Wilkins, and he got hurt. So he's contributed to this as well. But I think he's
Good
earned.
signing, man. It's not his.
Yeah, I
fault.
mean, I'm not saying he's not a good player, but your best ability is availability, and if he can't stay healthy moving forward, then it's not a good signing. So, I think he earned enough goodwill. With all that being said, with the rookie class, obviously Brock Bowers is a star and got a good starter in Jackson Powers Johnson already, and DJ Glaze has been a decent starter at right tackle. I think he's done enough to where it feels more likely he'll be back next year than Pierce right now. But again, we have to see how things play out the rest of the way.
Yeah. If I were Tom Brady, first I would probably put 10 million more into the media buffet spread for the press box. Invest in that. Make sure you guys get like prime rib and lobster every week. And then I would probably keep Tom Telesco because he did a pretty good job, but I wouldn't let him choose quarterbacks anymore because the Gardner Minshew thing was a disaster. And I would probably fire Antonio Pierce because he's just not getting better as a game management coach. And if they are going to pick a young quarterback, I would want to have a head coach and quarterback and general manager in alignment moving on in the future. And I just don't know if Antonio Pierce has shown enough to be that guy. All right, next question from BB. Hey guys, what are the chances that the whole Raider organization is trying to tank for the rest of the season? And also, would it be smart to do just tank?
No, they're not. I mean, they're obviously still trying to win. Like, I mean, we talked about it, how hard the defense was playing today. And then even at the end, the offense putting together a couple drives and getting in position where, they had a couple shots at the end zone on a Hail Mary to potentially win the game. Like, if you're trying to tank, like, you don't get to that situation with all the injuries and whatnot that they've had. And also, I mean, you can just look at Antonio Pierce's reaction after that game. I know somebody else asked about it, and we can just kind of address it now. But he was pretty, he's usually pretty calm and composed after the games, but he was pretty riled up after this one. You could tell he was irritated by the outcome, and the losses continue to pile up. And I don't think he's in a position as a coach to, not worry about his job status if they lost every game the rest of the season, for example. And so there isn't some organizational edict to tank and lose out and everybody's going to be back next year. Like, that's not the case. I mean, we've seen teams do that before where that happens, but this isn't one of those.
Yeah, like he said, they're still buying in. I mean, he's preaching the same stuff, and he's tired of answering the same questions from guys like us. And yeah, it's the 10-game losing streak. And most of the games they're in for a little while, and they got a lot of teams pulled away at the end. But I mean, the effort's still there. And Mark Davis said when we talked to Tashan last week, that's definitely worth something. Definitely something he's noticed, that the team is still playing hard, which it's commendable. In a 10-game losing streak, no one's let go of the rope. So they got 3 weeks left. I think Mark Davis wants to see him win, but I think the most important thing is don't get blown out. I think I think you can buy if you're selling, hey, this team didn't quit at all during this long losing streak. They still played hard for Antonio Pierce. I think Mark can buy that.
All right. Last question from Nabby Nab. Fowler and Riddick painted a bleak picture of our roster, basically even saying Sanders might not want to play here. Your thoughts?
So those two guys said that a 2-12 roster was not very good. That's That's a hot take. That's pretty good. I mean, yeah, it's not a good roster. Fucking, it wasn't great before all the injuries. Now they're playing guys that coming off the street. So I think Shador Sanders, if he wants to come here, which it seems like he does, he talked about in the past. I think he wants to come to Vegas. He wants to be a part of this thing turning around. I think there are some star players still here. Max Crosby I think he's still going to be here. So I don't know if the roster, how bad it is, really affects anyone in terms of draft picks and where they want to play. I think they want to play, and it's all about the interviews, the combine, and the connections you make with coaches and the GMs, and you get a sense then if it's a legit organization. So I can't imagine people are looking at the depth chart at cornerback and like, fuck that place. I'm not going there. So I don't think it's that big a deal.
I don't know exactly what they said, but I mean, if you're comparing the Raiders to the rest of the bottom dweller teams, I wouldn't say that they are quite like in the same class as the Giants as far as roster wise. I mean, you look at the defensive line. If everybody comes back healthy, you have Christian Wilkins, Max Crosby, two pretty good players. Spillane is a very good linebacker. You look at the secondary. I think Trayvon Morig has taken a step up. Jacorian Bennett was playing at a pretty high level before he was hurt. Obviously, you could probably use another corner, maybe another safety. But defensively, if these guys are all healthy, this could be a top 10-ish type of defensive unit. Offensive line is improving. Some young players, obviously. I think DJ Glaze is still a guy that you want to see a little bit more on before you could say he's a starting right tackle. But I think it's you could draft a right tackle and all of a sudden the offensive line. If you find a right tackle that is a bookend tackle, I think the offensive line is almost there. Brock Bowers is a weapon. I think this before the season, a lot of people were saying, the Raiders are a team that are a quarterback away from being a pretty decent team. And my feelings on that hasn't really changed that much. I mean, the quarterback play has been pretty god awful this season.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like the roster isn't completely devoid of talent. I mean, they have a couple high end players like a Max Crosby and Brock Bowers, and kind of the second tier of player like a Jacoby Myers or Jack Jones, Jacorian Bennett. So it's and then other than the high tier players, I throw Christian Wilkins in there as well when he's healthy. And so like I don't think it's like just a complete dumpster fire, but they do need some help at some pretty critical positions that tend to dictate how good your team is. So the good news for them is right now it looks like they're going to have a pretty high pick to help address that, and they also have $100 and something million in cap space. So it's a situation where you got to push all the right buttons, which isn't guaranteed, but they could potentially be a competitive team as soon as next season.
And Sanders does want to play for the Raiders. I mean, there's just way too many signs that Sanders does want to be in Las Vegas. I mean, he told one of the WNBA players, and you could hear him on the camera, that he wants to be in Vegas. So that part is definitely wrong. So
yeah, I imagine Brock Bowers is a pretty exciting guy you want to throw the ball to. I think if you're a quarterback like that guy, is pretty freaking good. I want to throw the ball to him.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for joining us today. I know it's late and it was not a great game, but for you guys to join us at this time means a lot. So appreciate it, and we will get back with you guys on Friday to preview the Jaguars game, and we'll see if they have a chance to win. It might not be a good thing, it might be a bad thing. We'll see. All right. Good night, guys.
All right. Hasta la vista.